Mental health. 1 in 4 of us will experience it, but is the country coping?
We just don't have enough funding.
With more people needing help whilst cuts to funding and jobs are being made, many would say this calls for a drastic change.
The number of people suffering from mental health problems is becoming a mental health epidemic.
The government's plans are to increase funding by £5 billion for mental health services in the next 5 years. But what if there's an alternative out there already that could help reduce the strain on the mental health services in the UK? You probably wouldn't guess it, but these friendly giants are helping people across the UK improve their mental well-being. Equine Assisted Therapy has been seen by many as a successful approach to treating mental health. Growing up with horses myself, I want to investigate whether this natural approach could be the next step forward in mental health treatment.
You are the best horse in the world.
I've headed to Cornwall to speak to equine facilitated learning therapist Kate Mabley to find out more about her and the therapy itself.
So I've been working with horses since I was little, and I realised that there was some obviously a definite deep connection between horses and people, a lot, and quite often women, because it's quite an emotional connection. And then gradually it began to make a link between therapy and working with horses. And I think it's how they behave and how they tap into your energy and want a connection with you.
Kate's client and friend Christine had a go at a session with Kate a while ago after experiencing her own personal trauma.
My husband committed suicide, and so it was all very traumatic. I had to move house a number of times, financial issues, and I've got 3 children, and anybody who knows anybody who's committed suicide, it's very, very, very traumatic. I found it very difficult to talk to a counsellor at the time, which I did, but they just want you to talk about yourself. And I didn't want to talk about myself. I didn't want to relive it all again. It was hard enough.
When you're opening up to people or talking to people, you have to tell them how you feel, and you might have some reservations about that, but with the horses, I guess you don't even need to say a thing. They can tell, I guess, you're saying how you feel.
Even Kate doesn't know this, and I haven't told anybody this at all, other than you now, is that talking to that horse, she got closer and closer and closer to me, and look, I'm goose pimples now. I can remember it so vividly. It's almost as if she knew what I was telling her was traumatic for me. So it was very nice to say to some old horse, I think you know that I've had some shitty moments in my life and been, had many, many, many days where I haven't wanted to get up at all in the morning. I wish horse therapy had been around then, or I'd known about it, because I think it would have been absolutely wonderful.
Christine was up for having another go at a therapy session after our chat, so we headed to the arena nearby to work with horse Rowley and see if the session can help Christine with any other issues she may have. Before she starts, Kate tells Christine to set up objects around the arena to use as metaphors for what she might like to work through with the horse.
You can just give him a little tug just to get him going, because he's got a bit stuck there. So he was picking up on her anxiety, and she was a bit anxious to get going, and I think she's going to work through something fairly big here. And I think you could see by the way she was walking, she wasn't really ready to take that step.
When Christine's ready, she tells us what she experienced during her session.
And Sarah and Toby, who's had asthma attacks, the white box that he sniffed up.
Yeah.
Didn't touch the other one, which is Ida, the little girl. For the children, that's Emma. Mm-hmm. Emma's got lots of anxiety issues. He stayed a long time there. What I would have liked is to have Richard's kids here. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Let it go. This is what it's all about. There's no apologies.
It's just amazing.
I headed to Manchester to speak to clinical psychologist Dr. Martin Bennett. He not only talks about horses as a therapy, but also how getting involved in outdoor activities can benefit the mind.
There is definitely evidence that working with horses or other animals can help people to access difficult emotions that they weren't able to in other ways. Instances of things like activity prescribing being done, so supporting people to access healthier lifestyles, because there's a recognition that generally healthy lifestyles support people's mental health better.
Parks in Mind in Bournemouth do just that by promoting outdoor activities to help mental and physical well-being.
It's helped me, build up some momentum getting back from long-term illness. Getting closer to nature is always important for mental health, but also just being a bit active and chatting, having a cup of tea, simple things in life,
So why are alternative therapies like equine therapy perhaps more overlooked compared to others?
Mental health difficulties cause around 40% of the disability in the UK, and they receive about 17% of the funding. There's nowhere near enough funding. Things like equine therapy, etc., while they might be a good idea, become a luxury item that we can't afford to provide because we don't have enough money to provide the services that have a clearer evidence base.
Kate has a different view to Martin, saying she thinks using horses is the best way to help the mental health services.
Obviously in the UK at the moment we all know there's a massive, you could say a bit of a crisis going on, there's cuts in the NHS funding problems. Would you say, there's people that are desperately needing it right now in that respect, that they should be getting the funding and not necessarily this work?
I know this is getting really complicated, but I feel the more that people do this work, the less of a crisis. It's a last resort, and it shouldn't be a last resort. So I do believe that this work should be funded equally. And I think it could actually stop the crisis.
It seems at the moment there's not enough backing and evidence to say that equine therapy is a cost-effective treatment for treating mental health. However, it is growing and the NHS is starting to back it in some areas. Certainly for people like Christine, you could say it's helping her overcome her issues and feel better mentally.
Now, because I don't know why, I just do. It's fantastic. I just think it's an amazing experience.
Can I do this?